All right, traders. Well, welcome to a new module. This is the trend surfing process broken down into 4 steps. And we're going to be talking about in this lesson, step 1 of the process, which is surf where the waves are. So we're going to look at 3 places where we are going to be able to catch a wave. Now, in the trend surfing analogy or in the surfing analogy, we talk about the lineup. The lineup is where the surfers sit to catch a wave. And there are only going to be 3 places where we're going to sit and catch a wave. But if you ever hear me talk about the lineup, then that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where these guys are sitting and the waves are going to come through that location and they're going to jump on a wave. In step 2, we're going to look at the wave itself and what is considered a powerful wave. But in this step, surfing where the waves are, we are going to focus on the 3 places where we could pick up a wave. Now, in order to do that, we need to have our 20-period moving average and our 200-period moving average installed on our chart. So you'll want to go ahead and do that. There is a lesson in the course on how to do that. And that's how we determine this whole analogy of the coastline and surfing the waves and everything. Everything wraps around the 20 and the 200, so we want to keep on that. So that's the next thing to do. All right, so let's go and look at these 3 places where we might be able to catch a wave. So in previous lessons in a previous module, we talked about these 3 states: the narrow state, the trend state, and the wide state. And you also looked at the coastline analogy. So the coastline analogy broke these 3 states down into kind of a coastline surfing analogy. So let's look at that real quick, and then we're going to go over and let's see. I need to find this, what I'm looking for. All right. So let's bring in our correct deal and let's look at the coastline analogy. All right, we can use this. This is current. Let's see, is this Bitcoin? This is AV. These guys make drones. I had a friend tell me about this particular one. So this is AV on the weekly chart. Doesn't matter. Any time frame, any market, except for tiny little markets. I mean, this is a pretty small market, but any market, any time frame, you should be able to use this strategy. So whether you're trading Bitcoin, Forex, futures, cattle, stocks, doesn't matter. It all works. All right. What is the coastline analogy? Let's just bring that in real quick. This is the deep water. This is the wave. The 20-period moving average is the wave itself. The surfer surfing the wave is the market. I didn't want to type that. Surfer. The surfer is the market. All right, that's better. The beach was out here. So the wave is going from the deep water into the beach. And let's see, I'm missing something. Oh, I'm going to introduce a new analogy or a new term, and that is the riptide. So this move from the beach back to the deep water is called the riptide. That's called the riptide. And I've got a few more little terms that I haven't introduced yet. We'll get to those, but these are the big ones. So we've got the deep water. We've got the wave that comes off the deep water, sort of sets itself up. The surfer is surfing that wave into the beach. They're going to get off that wave, and then possibly there might be a chance for the riptide to come back to the deep water. What is a riptide? Let's just take a look. I think I've got one in here. This is a riptide. So the waves come into the beach. Let me see if I've got a little arrow. And then let me see if I can make that bigger. Can I make that bigger? Let's make it bigger here. The waves come into the beach, and then there's a channel that goes out from the beach back into the deep water. And I don't know the exact physics behind it, but somehow this water sort of collects and it finds starts digging a trench into the sand, and it just finds a way to actually go. So you literally have a river going back out. If you were to swim into this riptide, you can, most tourists and people who come into the water and don't know what they're doing, they will swim against this. They will swim, let me change this direction. They will swim against the riptide that way, and it will tire them out and they will drown. Many people drown in riptides. But in this case, the riptide is going from the beach back to the deep water. And that is our analogy here. We're going from the beach back to the deep water. And that's what I call the riptide. So we're going to look at 3 places in this video where we could take a trade. The narrow state, which is where the 20 and the 200 are parallel. So you're going to see the 20 and the 200 are relatively parallel. That's one place we could take a trade. The other place we could take a trade is in the trend state itself. While we're surfing, we might have an opportunity to take a trade. When the market pulls back to the 20, we only take trades. And if you want to write one core concept that will save you again and again and again, there are probably a number of core concepts, but this is one of the most important things you can ever learn. And that is, you take a trade near the 20. You do not take a trade away from the 20. That would be a no-go. This would be a go. So we take trades near the 20, not away from the 20. We don't trade wide to wider. This would be considered wide. No, this is just getting started, but this would be considered wide. Oh, I'm sorry, a wide away from the 20. This is just getting started. So don't let me get too off field here. This is moving away from the 20. That would be considered wide away from the 20. And we don't trade wide to wider. Okay? So this is not a place we trade. This is a true wide state over here. Okay. So let's see. So we would take our trade here at the narrow state where it's flat. These two are parallel. And then we would take a trade along the trend while we're surfing. And then we might have an opportunity to take a trade and trade the riptide somewhere in here. We might find an opportunity to trade the riptide. In this case, it was right here. And we could potentially trade this back to the beach. Those are the 3 and only 3 places that we would take a trade. In fact, if I was very, very specific, it would be right here. Now let me just go over, let's see, there you go. Okay. Let me go over some of the nuances in, so this would be considered a narrow state. Let me change the color on this and let me get rid of some of this coastline. I might come back and use that later, but let's get rid of that. So this would be considered the narrow state here. We have an entire video on that. Look at the other module that you just came out of. This is the trend state. And this is the wide state. Now, I'm going to show you something because you might be saying to yourself, I've heard this 100 times. I'm getting tired of hearing this. So let me show you where you're at in your trader journey. You are here. You are in education mode or education phase. You are just learning education. I did win a spelling bee. I actually won 2 spelling bees when I was a kid. You are in education phase right now. You are learning the basics of how charts work, how markets work, how trading works. You are learning the book knowledge right now. We haven't even gotten to the trading part. So you are learning the book knowledge. So if I go over and over and over the same thing over and again, it's because I need you to learn this. I need you to kind of like really take this on to the point where you could teach it to your kids, you could teach it to your friends. You're like, this is a narrow state, this is a trend state, this is a wide state. Okay, you are in the education phase right now. The next phase you're going to go through is the training phase. Now, I was on a nuclear submarine, and we all went to school. I went to school for 2 years before I even stepped foot on a nuclear submarine. I went through the education phase. Then the training phase on a nuclear submarine was, we all knew what we were doing when we got there. I mean, we knew, we had the book knowledge when we got there. And you know what? Let me give you a story about a nuclear submarine. I went to school for 2 years. I'll just put this up here. I went to school for 2 years on a nuclear submarine, or before I got to the nuclear submarine in San Diego. And the moment I stepped foot on the boat, the guy who introduced me to the boat, he was a crew member. I stepped foot on the boat and he said, your name is now Nub. Okay. Your name is Nub. N-U-B. You will be called Nub. You will answer to the name of Nub. And that stands for non-useful body. In other words, you've been to school for 2 years, but you don't know jack scratch until you have trained with us for a year. After a year, you will become qualified on a submarine. And after that, you will be useful. But right now, you are useless. So you will be called Nub. And that's what everybody will call you. Come here, Nub. Do this, Nub. Okay. So you are right now you haven't even gotten to the submarine yet. You are in education phase. You are learning how things work. Then we're going to go through the training phase and we are going to do drills. So I got on the boat, and you know what? All these trained crew members who had gone through education, they were qualified. And you know what they did? You know what they did 4 hours a day? Even after all of that, 4 hours a day to keep from dying on a submarine. You know what they did? Because there's 100 ways you could die on a nuclear submarine. By, seawater could go into the battery well and create a toxic gas. You could have a torpedo that you load into the torpedo tube and you kick on the engine of the torpedo and the torpedo doesn't eject, and it's called a hot run in a torpedo tube. And you have to figure out how are you going to turn off this engine while it's running, while it's filled with seawater, et cetera, et cetera. You could have a fire. You could have a nuclear reactor issue. You could have flooding, all kinds of ways so we drilled 4 hours a day as qualified crew members. We still drilled 4 hours a day. So you're going to go through training. You're going to go through drills with me. You're going to learn. I'm going to send you out on little tasks. Go find the narrow states, go find the trend states, go find the wide states, go. Do this 100 times, then do it again another 100 times until you can absolutely teach this to somebody. So the next thing you're going to do, you're going to go through training. All right. So you're in education phase. You're going to go through training and you're going to do drills. The third phase is you're going to get experience. One of the things that you're going to get in the training phase is you're going to run a paper trading account. I showed you how to do that in the TradingView setup video. You can set up a paper trading account. You can trade other people's money, fake money, as if it was real. And you can learn how to train. And also, you're going to get experience doing that. But experience comes from trading your real money. So after you've gone through this, you've done your training, you've done your education, you really know what's going on now. Now you're going to trade your own money and you're going to get experience. And there's nothing like experience. And that experience will cost you more than this course will ever cost you. But experience is great. You'll make some mistakes, but you're going to learn, and hopefully you'll make a hell of a lot less mistakes after you learned all this and trained. And from experience, you're going to get results. And these results will be far better than your previous results that you used to get. But we're going to go through all of this. That's why you're in a coaching program. You're not just in a buy a course and forget about me kind of a thing. I'm here to train you and drill you and comment, like you can have your experience out there. I did this trade. Tell me what happened, and I'll go and look at it. And so you get experience, and then your results are just going to get better and better and better and better and better. But you're going to be a serious pro at this. But we're using the surfing analogy because personally, I think it's just a nice, easy way to learn it and not overthink this. Just have some fun with it. Okay, so this is what we're in right now. So if you hear these things over and over and over again, you're like, oh my God, why do I have to listen to all this? Well, that's why. Okay, so what are we going to do today? We're going to go through narrow states. We're going to look at a bunch of market examples of narrow states, and we're going to look at where we would set up. We're going to look at trend states, where we might set up, and wide states, where we might set up. So let's look at narrow states right now. Currently, we are in AV, but let's go over to Bitcoin. And let's look at, I guess we're going to look at the hourly chart on Bitcoin. Now, I have the market hidden. I can bring in the market. If you want to do this drill with me, you can hide the market. So over here on the right-hand side, you'll see this panel. And this says called the object tree and data window, but it's basically a panel. It's all on and off. And inside this panel, you're going to see the market itself. You see these little candles. This market has a little eyeball on and off. You can turn the market on and off there. And then down at the bottom, I've got all these. I track probably over 100 charts with my other service that I do with my NeoWave forecasting service. And I have, so I've got a ton of folders here. I track a tremendous amount of information on many, many different markets. But down at the bottom here is what I'm trying to get to. Down at the bottom, you will see that you have your two moving averages, your 20 and your 200. And if for whatever reason, you can turn them on and off over here on the left side. If you see over here, you can turn them on and off here, but you can't rearrange them. Down here on the bottom right, you can actually click and rearrange the order. So if for whatever reason they get out of order, you can rearrange them there, and you can also turn them on and off with the little eyeball visually. You can do that there as well. So in this case, we're going to turn the market off, and we're just going to look at narrow states and see if we can find some narrow states. And then we're going to look at trend, and then we're going to look at wide. So we're in the Bitcoin hourly chart. Now I can see a narrow state just by looking at this right now. Can you see it? How about we zoom in on this one right here? Why does this look like a narrow state? Because the 20 and the 200 are relatively parallel. That's what we're looking for. This is surfing where the waves are. This is this right there. That's what we're looking for. So what comes out of that? And why do we surf there? Why are we interested in that particular location? Because that is going to be where we find the initiation of a pattern. So so I've backed out of this. This was our narrow state right there. The market was relatively parallel, right? Relatively parallel. But let's look at what the reasoning behind why does the market kick off a pattern out of a narrow state? Well, let's look at what is really happening here. We have a power move down. We've talked about those being in orange. We have a correction to that power move up. And then we have a power move down. So this would be blue. And I've gone over these in some of my other examples. Let's get rid of the market here, the moving averages. That's what we've got. That looks a lot like a pattern I've described in some of my other pattern videos, right? Well, let's bring the market back. So why did we go to a narrow state here in this blue corrective move? Because these power moves are achieving price distance in a short amount of time. These moves, these intervening corrections are generally flattish sideways moves that are not achieving price distance in a short amount of time. In fact, they're flattish for a longer period of time. And then what is this move? This move is more generally not as sharp as the first one, but it will be sharper than the, it's going to cover more distance in a faster amount of time than the correction is generally it. That's why it's in orange. So sharp, weak, sharp. Now let's bring the market, let's get rid of this and let's bring the market back in. And why is this parallel? Because it's the correction. The moving average, the 20 period moving average compared to the 200 is covering so much price distance, it's creating an angle to the 200, whether it's going up or coming back, it's creating an angle. When the market is going relatively flat for a period of time, these markets will come, or these moving averages will start to track together. So let's bring the market and see if it does go sideways a little bit. Relatively sideways. I mean, if you were to look from here to here, there isn't a lot of distance, is there? Yes, it bounced all over the place, but the net effect was it didn't go very far. And then when you look at from here to here, there was quite a lot of movement there. And then from here to here was quite a lot of movement. I mean, it was almost vertical. Now, we don't know if this thing might have started here. You know, it doesn't matter. Bottom line is these two started tracking parallel because the movement was not, it wasn't going anywhere. It was just overlapping sideways. And so this thing started tracking parallel, the 200 was far more muted than the 20. The 20 is all over the place compared to the 200. It's far more muted. And then the 20 started getting more muted. And then boom, it started tracking. And then we break out of that. So we're breaking out of the parallel, looking for these power moves. All right, so we're not getting into the power moves or how to catch a power move and make some money. We're not doing that yet. We'll do that in the next lesson, step 2, which is to find a power move out of a narrow state. So that's what we're going to do in the next lesson. But right now in this lesson, we're just looking for being in the right location to surf at all. Now, let's look at this where it comes together and crosses. So this cross here and this cross here, is this parallel? That's not really parallel, is it? This would be parallel. But this is not parallel, nor is this. So when we talk about relatively parallel narrow state, we're not talking about crosses. Now we can potentially get in on a trade on a cross, but let me explain why. Obviously, a cross is a continuation of a move. It is not the start of a move. I want to be very clear about that. A cross does not start a move. It is the continuation of a move. It is almost like mid-trend wave. So narrow states get us in at the beginning, which is what we want. A cross, we might find an entry in or around a cross, but it's not going to get us in at the beginning. This move started here. The cross was like 2/3 of the way up. This cross actually happened 1/3 of the way up. And then it was way up here. So it is possible that you can find a trend after this has crossed, and now you've got the 20 period moving average on the correct side of the 200. Your market is on the correct side, and there you go. Boom, you've got a huge power move down. But let's take a quick look while we're still talking about narrow state, and let's see why this little arc here might be considered. It's not considered narrow because it's kind of, pushed away here, But why is this even an option? It's because you had trend angle here. You have trend angle here. But what happened here? You started tracking in a parallel state, didn't you? Now, it is wide, and we will be talking about entries from a wide state, but I just want to get your head wrapped around the idea that parallel produces the kickoff, this initial kickoff to the trend angle. Parallel gives you the kickoff to the trend angle. And if I was to go to the, I don't even see the candles, but if I was to go to the candles in this area, I could find you an entry. Let's just bring them in for kicks and see if there is an entry. There is a power move here. There is a power move here. I didn't even see the candles. I'm doing this completely blind. I can turn this off, and this is what I want you to do. I want you to begin looking for where these trend states begin. In this case, you have a narrow state all the way to here, and your trend state began here, didn't it? In the next lesson, we will be looking for powerful waves. But in this lesson, I want you to start thinking about, where did my trend state begin? So we've talked about narrow states being these parallel lines. And these parallel lines come in because you had a power wave. Here, let's get that the right color. You had a power wave. You had a backing off. And now you have another power wave. And where is our trade entry? At the beginning of these power moves. It's not here. We don't trade into, away from the 20 into the 20. We don't do that. We don't trade into the 20. Let's make this one, red. We don't do this. We trade at the beginning of these power moves. How do we know that? Because let me just delete all this. How do we even know this is here? When I put on my replay and I can't see all this, how do I even know that's there? Well, let's play it out here. Slam right there. You're going to see, you're going to be in this narrow state. You're going to be looking for a candle. Which color candle would be on the bear side? So there are 20s on the correct side of the 200. The market will be on the correct side. So you have 220 market. What color candle do you think would be a trend candle on this side of the market? I would think a red candle would be beneficial. So when we start to see slamming red candles in these correct, now understand, I did not set this up. I just went to Bitcoin on a whim on the hourly chart and found this. This is what you're going to do all day, every day. You're going to get yourself in this location and you're going to look for this slamming red candle here in the correct location, and you are going to make money. This is current state. Oh, no, actually, let me take the red. This is on replay, so this is not current state. Sorry. Got a little ahead of myself. But let's play this out. Let's play this out, see what happens. Comes back to the 20. Does it give us an entry? Nope. It turned around. That was it. That was the end of it. All right, so let's get rid of replay. All right. If you ever see this, it went to white. I have no idea what's going on. Just hit your A button and it'll bring the market back to you. Okay. For whatever reason, it decided to reset. All right. So we were looking at this right here, I believe. something like that. One of these. Let's see. Is that the one I was looking at? Let's see. Oh, I was looking at this one right here. So let's look at this real quick. And you'll see I can't move my market now. I can't move it. Okay, that's because the A button has been selected. So let's uncheck that. A button, what it does is it allows you to see the high and the low of the candles you can visit or see right here. It's showing me the high and the low. That's why it's forcing me, or it's not allowing me to move the chart around. Now, when I uncheck the A button, I can now move the chart around. So there's just a little note there. Okay. So we were, I was going to do the coastline analogy on here, and I want you to do this 100 times a day. You're not going to do it 100 times a day, but I want you to do your coastline analogy. This is about as epic as it gets right here. In fact, I'm going to show you 3 places to enter the trade. Actually, I think on this one, there's only 2 because this trend did not really play out. So I'll show you 2 places on this one, and then I'll show you another one on the other, as we go along. There really wasn't a re-entry on this trend. So let me just show you this first one. You have the coastline is this. What was this? This was called the deep water. This is the wave we're surfing. This was the surfer, which is the market. I can't remember. I think I had that one in purple. Let's just put that one in purple. Why not? The beach was out here. I think I had that in this color right here. I'm trying to keep it all pretty consistent. All right, so that's the beach. This is our riptide if it works out. They don't always work out, but let's just put that there. I think I had that one in turquoise. And then let's see, what else am I missing here? Well, I'll find one if I think there was one I'm missing. All right. So we're in our lineup. Remember I called it the lineup? That's the narrow state. That's where the surfers sit, waiting. The market has gone sideways. The 2 moving averages are coming together. This breakout here is on, you don't have the 20 period on the correct side. There's nothing going on here. And all of a sudden, the market breaks to the correct side. It has follow through. And we don't have to ask permission. We're just going to get in that. And the market comes down. This is down the face of the wave. Let me see if I can bring this up. I think it's right here. We pop up on our wave. We come down the face of the wave. And that's what this is right here. That is down the face of the wave. And we're going to do a little bottom turn and pull back. And maybe it gives us another run. Maybe it doesn't. In this case, it didn't. And that was the end of it. Now, where was our trade entry? Right here. We're not talking about candles and powerful wave entries right here. That'll be our next lesson. But I just want to show you that you can do this on any time frame, minute, 2-minute chart, 5-minute, 15-minute, hourly, daily. I just pulled this up, Bitcoin on the hourly chart. Bam, there it is. And you can find a time frame that works. I'm just going to take a drink of my coffee here. My mouth is getting dry. You can find a time frame that works for you, that works with your work schedule. It works with, let's say the only time you have to trade is Bitcoin at 3 a.m. in the morning. Well, if nobody else is trading Bitcoin at 3 in the morning, you may struggle to find some big moves like this. These might be more institutional buyers or big players or something like that. You might find a time frame that works for you, where there's players in the market, whether it's Tokyo or it's Sydney or it is London or New York. Major money comes into the market at certain time frames, and it works with your schedule and the type of market you want to trade. And then you sit in the lineup and you wait for these moves. So whether it's the hourly chart or the 15-minute chart, whatever you do is you find these moves and you get in at the beginning of these moves. This is surfing down the wave. And we're going to learn in lesson 3, which is step 3 of surf the trend. We're going to learn how to surf this trend. And then when it basically tells us, nope, trend is over, the wave is over, we're going to be at the beach, then we're going to turn around and we're going to see if we can possibly surf the riptide back. All right, well, let's just quickly look at that so I can give you an entry signal. So let's bring our little box over here, and I'm going to walk you through it. Again, we're gonna go through this in more detail in step 3, but I just want to walk you through it. The market came down. It was away from the 20. Look how far away from the 20 it is. When you see trend bar, slam, you better be thinking, I'm going to take some profits here. Then the market pulls back. It breaks the 20 all the way through, penetrates and breaks the 20. It comes back and it tests. It actually breaks back through the 20. We're going to learn about this in the next lesson. This is a extremely strong, dominant trend reversal. So this came back. Even though it broke back through the 20, this was your trend reversal. It came back into the 20, came back, tested the 20. We take trades near the 20 and you're in. You could have probably technically gotten in here, but to be really strict, we came back into the 20, it retested and slam. Now, this is your riptide. I don't want to get into the intricacies of trading this particular candle and whether or not you could have even gotten in this trade or whatever. But this is your riptide going back. It goes back, and what do you see here? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? We are now away from the 20. What do we do when we're away from the 20? We take profits. Because what happens? It tends to want to come back to the 20. And if there was an entry here, maybe the trade keeps going. Maybe. But there was no entry here. It penetrated. So let's put a little box here. Where was our entry? When it came back through the 20, it tested, and there was our entry. So we surf where the waves are. Where are the waves? When it comes, so when we're in a wide state, the market re-enters from outside, re-enters in, tests and holds, and then gives us an entry. That's an entry. So we've talked about entering from a narrow state, catching the beginning, coming back through, entering in a wide state, essentially catching the beginning. Obviously, you're way down here, but you're essentially catching the beginning. This is your safety. This is a lot safer to when it tests and holds the 20, boom, there you're off to the races. So you're going to enter here. You're going to enter here. Where are you not going to enter? Away from the 20. You're not going to enter here. You're not going to enter here. Not this way. And not this way. Right? So in your training, we talked about education. In your training, where you go out into the market and practice, you're practicing looking at charts like I'm doing here. I want you to rewatch this video 10 times, go back and say, am I wide? Am I pushed off the 20? Okay, I'm going to get my eye to start seeing this. We're going to learn it over and over again. We're going to have a whole lesson on this, but I just want you to begin to see it. All right, let's keep going. Now, we're taking trades here. We're taking trades here. And we've now penetrated through the 20. We are let me get rid of this. We are relatively flat again. We've come back through into the 20. We've broken down through the 200. So the market is on the correct side of the 20. Now you don't know that when you're here, right? We don't know that yet. So let's advance this. See if we can advance this. Well, that went pretty quick. You are at a bit of a parallel. It started to angle down, slam. It is now basically about to cross. So you're on the correct side of the 20. You're on the correct side of the 200. Whether or not you got in here, I'm just kind of giving you an idea of what's happening, and you're now off to the races. But I guess my ultimate point is that the trend changed. You're no longer up. You got to be aware that when you're away from the 20 here, your trend is going to change potentially. And this was the confirmation that this trend has changed. And now you're riding the trend. So you have 220 market. What do you see here? Market's pushed way away from the 20, comes back to the 20. Oh, and here's our one we're missing over here. I'll use this as my third entry point. And this will be a little lesson to finish out the video. Our trend state is in an angle. Our trend state is at an angle to the 200. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Our 20 is at an angle to the 200. So we are still in a trend state. We have not yet gone flat. Okay. The market pulled back. The market went wide. It pulled back less than 50%. Technically, it could pull back about 60%, but it stayed, way shallow. So we had a big fat run, pulled back, and this would be our entry. This is our third entry. So we talked about entries, entry locations. We had our wide state entry location. We had our riptide entry location. And we had our, there's my riptide entry location. And then we had our re-entry on a continuing trend, a trend that's already in play. It comes back to the 20 and it has not retraced this. In other words, it didn't do this. It didn't go down in a power move and then go all the way back up in a blue wave. It didn't retrace. So what's the importance of it not retracing? A power move that does not retrace has a tendency to repeat itself. Okay. In fact, if you want me to bring in my little pattern analysis, I don't even know what's going to happen right now. But if you wanted me to bring in my pattern analysis hat, let me move some of this, clear it up a little bit. We're talking about step one, surf where the waves are. But in terms of re-entry, this would be a legit re-entry right here, right there. So we have the narrow state. We have the narrow state. We have the wide state where the market was wide. And we could surf the riptide going back. And then we have a re-entry pullback. So if I put on my pattern analysis hat and I said, this market here came down, went wide, I'm just going to play with this. I have no idea what's going to happen, but this is the potential of what could potentially happen. Let's see where it's going to actually go. Let me see if I get this right. There you go. Almost to the candle, almost to the level. And the reason I chose that is that's roughly 60, 70%. And that's a good run on a third wave. And the reason I could even predict that is because you had a power move down, weak sideways, and a follow on. And now you're pushed away from the 20. Now here's the question. Do I take a trade here? Well, am I still in an angle or am I flat? I'm pretty much still at an angle. I'm going to say I'm still at an angle. And I'm at an angle to the ongoing 200. It's right about there. Now, I don't know what's going to happen here, but if I was given an entry, I'm pretty good with continuing this trend, although I'm starting to be aware that this is getting a little long in the tooth. You can be pretty confident that you're going to get your 1, 2, 3 or your ABC out of this. But this move, I don't know. We're gonna see what happens, right? So let's let this thing run. This could potentially be another entry. So we had an entry along. I'm kind of getting into lesson 3 here. We had an entry along the 20. We pushed away. We came back. It did not retrace. Now it's possible that this is going to punch through and it's over and that's the end of it. But we have not gotten in the market yet. When do we get in the? All we're doing is step 1. We're being ready to surf where the waves are. If a wave gives us an entry, we could get in. Let's find out what happens. So it kind of rode the 20. You could want to get in here. This would be considered a color change, and we'll get into this in the next lesson, but let me just show you what happened here. This was a few little greenies. The red took out green, and you had a boom, boom, boom. You pushed away. You can see that these moves are getting weaker and weaker and weaker as you're going down. So slam, less slam, less slam. And now it's sort of, so this entire move is one sideways move right here. You see that? It's going sideways this entire time. So even though this trend is coming down, because this came back, do you see how we're now? I'll bet you this is parallel here now. Okay. So this is sort of proving my point. This entire sideways move caused a parallel activity. We are now relatively parallel here. And what happened? You had another entry. Now, we sometimes are going to have the market go wide like this. Let's get rid of all this stuff here. Sometimes we're going to have the market go wide. Actually, let me I'll leave the replay on there right now because if I get rid of it, it's going to throw me off on the chart. So the market clearly went wide. It has now gone sideways, and this would normally be considered the beach, but we have another entry, and this can be a larger leg or a larger degree pattern where we now have down, sideways, down. So we have a clear entry here going away from the market. All right. So we have to be careful when we're wide, but there are entries. If we never ever entered, I can show you the S&P 500 where it's been doing this scenario here for 15 years. It's been riding the 20, coming back, going down, riding the 20, and ultimately the 20 and the 200 on the S&P 500 are essentially doing this. And they've been doing this for years. They're going parallel along the trend. So while we might say, gosh, it's very wide, it's in certain areas it's going parallel. So I guess the nuance here is that yes, we went wide. We got out or were forced out here at the beach, but it then kicked off from this, we could call it narrow parallel state here, and kicked off another run. Boom. Look at the angle of that compared. So you went on an angle here. You went on an angle again. So we're gonna learn about all this stuff in step 3. And we're just gonna keep hounding this and pounding this, all these little nuances. But the main thing you want to consider here is you had some trade entries in your narrow state. You had some trade entries in your wide state to trade the riptide, and then you had some re-entries along the way in the correct location. Obviously, bear entries, and then you had another little bear entry here. Did we have a riptide bull entry going back? Let's just do that one final little detail because I can't stand it. And then we'll finish this video. I really shouldn't do this because this is step 2 where we're looking for power waves, but I'm here and I'm going to do it. All right. Did we have a riptide entry? Because I did go over the riptide a little bit. Well, the market came down. It did break through. It broke through. It came down, tested, but it broke through again. So it never held. It broke back through, tested, but it never held. So we never had the market break through and hold the 20 and then kick off with a nice green bar that we could call an entry. It just isn't there. So I just wanted to show you that. There was no entry. And then it did give us an entry to the downside. So we were able to make a little money down. And then it pulled away, went wide, and we're out. And who knows what's going to happen here. Listen, we can just let this play out. Let's see what happens. It's playing, it's trying. It's weak. It's really going sideways now. My guess is it's probably gonna come back because it's just this here. When it starts doing this overlapping sideways stuff, it's riding the 20 sideways. That's the beach. That's the beach, and it's done. And it's, now it's come back. And let's zoom in real quick. Where did it hold? It didn't hold, broke through, came back, held, slam, and now it came back through. So this was not an entry, but when it held and finally broke through kind of all this, there's your entry right there. You could have taken this. Your trend is up. Your trend is now up at an angle. You could potentially take this trade right there. That would be your entry. You didn't get in, it broke back through, finally came back and held. Somewhere in here, you could get in an entry as it clears all this. Boom, you're in your entry right there. What's going to happen? You're pretty close to this deal here. Maybe it clears it, maybe it doesn't. Let's just let this play out. But you can see that you potentially could have an entry in there. And it didn't like it. So you might have got stopped out. Or actually, you would have gotten stopped out. So that's the nature of the market, nature of the beast. But I probably would not have taken this trade. You are not going from a deep wide state all the way back to a 200 that's flat. This is a downtrending 200 and uptrending 20, and you're basically taking a state an entry here where you're almost finished. So it's just this whole thing is just ugly. We'll get into all that. But just showing you where you get in, where you don't get in, where the surf where the waves are. And there's 3 locations. What are those 3 locations? Those 3 locations are narrow state, parallel. So that the 20 and the 200 are parallel. You're going to have a trend state, and that's where you're going to have a angle of the 20 and the 200 are at an angle. And you're going to also have a chance to get in. Oh, and let's put it this, let's do this. Enter at the 20. We talked about that. And then your other entry is going to be at a wide state once the market holds the 20. So you can go back and watch this video a bunch of times. And I hope I explained that. We're gonna, I've just barely introduced the Riptide, but we're going to go back and talk about this many times. You'll see many examples of this. But the main point of this video is to show you the 3 places where we enter trades and a couple places where we don't enter trades. We don't enter wide. We don't enter wide to wider. And that's the main, if I could just tell you anything, we just do not enter wide to wider. If we're going to enter at the 20. Maybe we get it right, maybe we get it wrong, but at least we entered at the proper location. We didn't fail step 1. So that is the end of step 1, lesson 1 of this trend surfing module. In the next lesson, we will be talking about these big power moves and their ability or their how they are the tell of kicking off a new pattern. So we're going to be looking for big power moves in the right location, and that will give us a chance. These big power moves in the right location, man, that's money right there. So you can see how that's the kickoff to a pattern, power. All right, so I will see you in the next lesson, and take care, everybody.